Okay, welcome back, folks, to Did Sid Barrett and Pink Floyd the Beatles? This will be my conclusion slash summary episode, and I'd like to go through a few topics. I'll do an introduction where we kind of, discuss our corrections and items of note. Then I want to run through about 5 songs, and some of those will be of late Beatles and then Lennon's solo career, and these will all be Lennon songs. And then I'll do some final thoughts on this topic and on a few side topics as well. So, the first thing I should do is mention, obviously, that I haven't made an episode in a little while, and the reason for that is, of course, because of all the things that are happening in Ukraine. It makes this kind of seem a bit pointless to me. I know that for me, this music is very important, and it can be point of view changing, attitude changing, humanity developing. I did notice that David Gilmour and Roger Waters cut their music off from Belarus and Russia, which, I mean, on the surface it seems good, right? You don't want to make money from or share money with people that are going to use it for things like they're using it for. However, as we mentioned in our breakdown of the Beatles, the song like Back in the USSR became very, very popular in the USSR, and perhaps in a way it opened up people's attitudes to the West. So it might seem a little bit counterintuitive, but by sharing things like music with people, you can really change their point of view. It's a lot like sharing food. One of the easiest ways to get people to open up to other cultures and ways of looking at the world is by sharing food with them. And then the pleasant experience of that makes people feel a little bit more open to ideas and different ways of doing things. The music does in many ways the same thing, in my opinion. So the idea that someone in Russia or Belarus might listen to Dark Side of the Moon, to me that's a very, very positive thing. I mean, that album, in my opinion, is designed to develop humanity. So why would you take that away from the people that you want to try and... Those are exactly the people that should be listening to that. Maybe they wouldn't. I don't know. But anyway, my point is that I've been kind of consumed with that story and watching it and not sure what to do and think. And so I've been applying myself to guitar and other things because that's what allows me to feel like I can ingest material and still cope with the world as it is. So, if you do look forward to these and you check in regularly, thank you. If you're a new subscriber, thank you. I do try and post things regularly on this topic, and I will continue to try to do so, but I needed to take a break for a little while, and hopefully you'll understand why. So let's look at some comments that people have made before I kind of continue on. One of the things I'd like to discuss is Rats Lay Down Flat. She has made a painting of Sid, and she puts together some Sid material. I suggest you go check her out. I mean, her painting looks pretty good to me, and I like that I can check into YouTube and see people that are doing different things, and that their influences and considerations are similar to mine. So, obviously, we're making things because they're things that we want to make, but it also helps if people kind of check in. And obviously, the policy with YouTube is that you have to have over 1,000 subscribers, and most people aren't anywhere near that. So they're really doing it for nothing. And it doesn't take anything to subscribe. So if you like Sid and you like Pink Floyd, please check out Rats Lay Down Flat. Please check out Steve Bobinski. He makes a lot of really cool videos. He has over 1,000 subscribers, and he makes really cool cartoons for Sid and Pink Floyd. And another person or group that you could check out is Airwaves Official. And they make a lot of good Sid and Pink Floyd videos. Some of them are quite involved, and it's not easy to do so. It's a lot of work, and it does take money. So I can only suggest that you go check them out. I think they're worth checking out, and give them a like and a subscribe if you feel like it's something you'd like to check in on. Again, I like getting things that aren't entirely mainstream, that I feel are original and creative, and the best way to support that is by checking them out and kind of giving them a like and a discussion. And so I'll suggest that if you like Sid and Pink Floyd, you do so for them. Now, I did get a few recent messages that I'd like to discuss. The first was pretty recent by Faye Warner, and they were discussing Mark Bolan and Steve Peregrine Took. And they had pretty interesting comments. I'm not sure who this person is, but they had some really cool stories, and they made comments in the Did Sid and Pink Floyd T-Rex / Mark Bolan, the very, very first episode, The Prelude, where I chopped up the music. And they had a lot of really cool statements in there, and I'm not sure how they have all that information, but they seem to be pretty forthright and honest, in my opinion. So I'll suggest you check out their comments. Now, they did mention a book, and I asked for the title, but they haven't gotten back to me yet. So if they give me a book title, I'll send it to you in my next episode. But if you would check out their comments, and I'll link that. I'll link that video in the description. Another person is Pink Floyd Collectors, who's discussing the intro to the Peeling Sid series, and they were kind of like, thanks for giving an alternate view on these things, and I'll say thanks for watching. Unfortunately, I feel now that I could have done a better job on the Peeling Sid series. As I stated, I had ideas and I had things that I wanted to do, but I was new to it all. So I still feel like it captures what I wanted to capture, but I don't think that series really gets going until episode 4, which is The Boy and the Lion. So if you are interested in Syd Barrett and Pink Floyd, and you're watching the Peeling Sid series, please get to at least episode 4 and watch that. And that's the point in time really where I realized that there was something significantly wonderful about Mr. Barrett that was being overlooked by most people. It's in his art. It's in his understanding, his symbolic understanding of things, even as a very young man. So the last person that I kind of would like to mention is JWA, and they were mentioning or discussing the Dark Side of Oz theory, and I'll kind of get into this a little bit more at the end of this video. But they kind of liked the review that we did, and I think it's a very strong review of that topic of Dark Side of Oz. I'll link that as well. And they mentioned that they did a kind of a connection all the way through. So I will give a link to their video, their discussion. You can check it out if you like. Now, I guess that's pretty much it. So what I would like to do now then is I want to go ahead and get into the last of the Beatles / John Lennon songs, and let's discuss a few of them and see if there's things that we can kind of pick up on about Mr. Lennon and that may perhaps tie in with Mr. Barrett in some ways. Okay? So the first song that I would like to review is a song called Across the Universe. Now this song was actually recorded in early February of '68. It started to be. It wasn't released until later. But the very first recordings of it are in early February of '68, before the Beatles went to India. Okay, so let's go ahead then and get started with the lyrics to Across the Universe by the Beatles, and in particular attributed mostly to Mr. John Lennon. Words are flowing out like endless rain into a paper cup. Now these are trademarks, so I can't just put them all up on the screen, but if you would call them up on your phone or something, you can follow along with me as I run through these. The first thing that I want to point out is that there is a story behind this song, and the story starts off kind of being a negative song of John Lennon listening to someone kind of talking in non-stop and irritating him, And then he went off to go make this song. So that's where that first line supposedly comes from. I won't get into the nature of that. It's a little bit of a negative story. Eventually, this song, he said, came changed into something very different from what he started with, and that seems to be accurate to my understanding of the reading of this song. But let's continue on. So words are flowing out like endless rain into a paper cup. So there we have paper cup. There's a lot of P alliteration there. And we have words flowing, so there's W, like endless, flowing like endless. There's a lot of L alliteration, but if you notice, it's spaced very distant. So it's difficult to call that specific alliteration. If it is, I mean, that's really, really subtle. So it's very loose, and it's wonderful. It has a wonderful rhythm to it. But is it formed poetry? I don't know. You decide. For me, it's not entirely. But let's continue on. They slither while they pass. They slip away across the universe. Now, I just want to point out slither, pass, slip. So there's a lot of S, L kind of, and universe. There's a lot of S's in there, but they're not really tightly packed. It could just be completely coincidental. But wonderfully stated, isn't it? Now, slither and slip are kind of related. They give the idea of kind of undulating waves, or perhaps the movement of a snake tied to poetry, which is pretty cool. Pools of sorrow, waves of joy. Now, waves of joy, the idea of waves of joy, etc., are within the song Green is the Color by Pink Floyd. Playing in the waves, playing in the shadow of the wave, may be a reference to the same idea, but of course a lot of people reference waves of joy. Drifting through my opened mind. So open mind appears to be a possible psychedelic reference. Possessing and caressing me. So obviously possessing and caressing rhyme. And then we get to the chorus. Now let's discuss this chorus really quickly. Jai Guru Deva, and then Om. So Jai Guru Deva, to my knowledge, means something along the lines of the enlightened teacher, delivering wisdom from an enlightened teacher. That's my understanding of what it kind of means. I don't speak the language, so I'm not entirely certain. But the next line in the chorus is, nothing's going to change my world. What a strange statement, isn't it? Now, perhaps this person means that they're kind of experiencing an enlightened state, and nothing's going to change that. They're not going to go back to the way that they were. I don't know. You'll have to decide kind of what you think that may be a reference to. I will just point out that that could be a negative statement as well. That is possibly meaning something along the lines of this person is not going to allow experiences to change them from a mundane existence. Now that would be a reverse reading. I would say it's much less likely, but ultimately you have to decide which way of looking at that statement you want to look at it from. The next verse starts with, images of broken light dance before me like a million eyes. What a wonderful statement. Again, we have some images, million, so there's M's before me, so images, me, million. We also have L's, light, like, million, eyes. The long I sound runs through there, rhyming light, like, eyes. They call me on and on across the universe, and then thoughts meander like a restless wind inside a letterbox. So we have like, restless, letter. It is alliteration, but again, it's spaced quite a bit, so it's hard to know if it's on purpose. Tumble blindly. Look at all the L's in there. Like, restless, letter, tumble blindly as they make their way across the universe. Tumble blindly is an interesting word combination because the T and the D is a bit of alliteration, and there's also an L in there. So we have tumble and then blindly. Definitely poetic right there. That word combination is definitely on purpose. Very nice. They do the chorus, and then we get to the next verse. Sounds of laughter, shades of life. So we have S of L and then S of L. Sounds of laughter, shades of life. Are ringing through my open ears. Then we have inciting and inviting. So inciting and inviting me. Inciting and inviting obviously rhyme, but then the me is a little bit odd, isn't it? Well, we saw the same thing in something in the way. She moves. It has that same odd me at the end of the line. A little bit odd because, of course, George Harrison was supposed to have written Something in the Way. And this is attributed to John Lennon. But they're doing the same thing. Perhaps one of them learned it from the other. I don't know. Limitless, undying love. That's a wonderful line, isn't it? A wonderful word combination. Limitless, undying love. And then you look at all the L's, and then there again is the T and D alliteration. Limitless, undying love. Shines around me like a million suns. So we have me, million, and then we have like, million, with the L's and the M's. Calls me on and on across the universe. Overall, a very wonderful song. As we have mentioned, a seemingly very positive song, a very hopeful song, and also what I would call a very spiritual song, wouldn't you? So that seems a bit odd coming from someone like John Lennon, just in my opinion. Not only does this appear to be something that is influenced by yoga and perhaps the experiences that are tied to it, but it also is very positive. It makes you wonder, like, how can someone who's going off to India to learn these things from the Maharishi, how can he already be kind of experienced in this matter? Just going to throw that out there, how is that happening? Also, we should point out, of course, that John Lennon had already done his, we're more popular than God or Jesus statement, which is a little bit odd. I mean, my understanding of Mr. Lennon was that he's kind of a skeptic. He's kind of a critic at heart. So this song just feels really positive about that experience. So it's a little bit odd to me for that reason. So what do I mean by that? Well, let's look at the next song. The next song is titled Sexy Sadie. Now, Sexy Sadie is a critical song that was written by Mr. Lennon, and they recorded it upon returning from their trip to India. So there's a whole backstory for this, and I'm not going to get into it. You can read about it if you like. I don't want to get into all the personal kind of things that are going on. But apparently there was some kind of implication of carnal activities that kind of was a turnoff for Mr. Lennon. Why? I don't know. Perhaps he thought that spiritually things would be different. Perhaps he was expecting things to be kind of, I don't know what exactly you would call it. I don't even know what he experienced. I mean, it's all just hearsay. But let's look at the song and see kind of what it's saying. Who is Sadie? All these kind of questions, I don't know. You'll have to kind of decide on your own. So if you would, call up Sexy Sadie on your phone or check it on your computer. Let's look at the lyrics. Sexy Sadie, what have you done? You made a fool of everyone. What have you done? It just kind of repeats. So we have done and everyone as a rhyme. It's very simple. Sexy Sadie, you broke the rules. You laid it down for all to see. And then that part repeats. So what exactly are these rules that are being broken? I don't know. Who's making the rules? I don't know. It appears that this person laid down the rules, but they are Sexy Sadie. I mean, that's one way of looking at it, right? So let's look at the next verse. One sunny day, the world was waiting for a lover. She came along to turn on everyone. Sexy Sadie, the greatest of them all. Okay. So right there, we appear to be connecting the idea of she came along to turn on everyone with Sexy Sadie. Now, the problem with this is, of course, that if this is critical of the Maharishi, I mean, he's not a she. So is this about him or is this about someone else? And who laid things down for everyone to see? Is this being written from one point of view of a person laying down the rules? and sharing all those rules so everyone could see them? Or is this saying that this is about a particular lady, perhaps, that laid it all down for people to see, if you follow that line of thought? So, I don't know exactly what's going on there, but it does seem critical. So, let's look at the next verse. Sexy Sadie, how did you know the world was waiting for you? That part just kind of repeats. Let's look at the very end here. You'll get yours yet, however big you think you are. We gave her everything we own just to sit at her table. Just a smile would lighten everything. She's the latest and greatest of them all. She made a fool of everyone, Sexy Sadie. So here's the question then, obviously. If the song is critical, it appears to be critical of this lady or woman that is named Sexy Sadie. Perhaps there's something tied up within the idea of the Maharishi and this lady. I don't know. But it's unknown enough that it's hard to know exactly what's going on. I will point out, though, that if this is by Mr. Lennon about that experience, then perhaps this is part of the rationale for why he would become a little bit more critical of religion later on. I would say he was always critical, but perhaps this made him even more critical. So let's look at the next song. And the next song that I want to point you to is a song called God. Now this was recorded 1970, so a couple years later. And it's attributed to John Lennon. So let's look at the first bit, if you would call the lyrics up. God is a concept by which we measure our pain. I'll say it again. So there's pain and again. Again, very loose rhyme here, but let's consider that very, very first statement. On the surface, it doesn't seem like much. I think most people, when they hear that, will say that means something quite profound. What is it? Hard to say. But, and for me, this is a difficult one to consider, because as I have mentioned to you before, I personally do identify as a Christian, although I am not tied to a dogma or a specific church. I consider myself to be more spiritual than dogmatic. So, what is meant by this? Well, one possible reading for this would of course be that God, the concept of God, is tied to negativity and pain for most people. That's quite disconcerting for someone like me to hear. But is it possibly objectively accurate? In some ways I would have to admit, yes. In some ways that some people do interpret things to be very negative. In other words, God is the entity that punishes you. God is the entity that sends you to hell. God is the one that's always watching you and looking for you to make mistakes. God is the reason why you have sickness. God is the reason why you die. All of these things are extremely negative. They're all tied to pain. But is that accurate? For me, it's not. If I was to get into that, for me, it's a much more positive and negative all tied together. Not just negative. But there are organized groups they have an extremely negative view, in my opinion, of what God is and does. So let's continue on and see what Mr. Lennon may be trying to reveal here. He now goes through a list of things that he does not believe in. He does not believe in magic. That's a little bit odd. He doesn't believe in I Ching. Okay, so there's two things right there. We've noted in Peeling Sid that there may be a influence by Mr. Crowley, who was tied to various magical thoughts and schools upon Mr. Barrett. And there is I Ching right there. And if you are a Syd Barrett Pink Floyd fan, you know chapter 24 of Piper at the Gates of Dawn is taken directly from the I Ching. So those are two things that we know that Mr. Barrett perhaps was influenced by. Since when are they influencing John Lennon? I don't know. Maybe he's a really deep dude. I don't know. But I haven't seen a whole lot of those references in his music before. I haven't seen him reference I Ching. Have you? I can't think of an instance. So let's continue on. He says he doesn't believe in Bible. Well, for me, that doesn't necessarily mean that he doesn't believe in Jesus and God. It says just the Bible. Well, yeah, we won't get off that easy. He gets into that again a little bit later. But he says he doesn't believe in Bible. He doesn't believe in tarot. Okay, so right there's a problem. He says tarot and not tarot. And most people that have studied tarot know that the T is silent. Perhaps there's other pronunciations somewhere. In England at the time, maybe people called it tarot. I don't know, like carrot. But I have never heard it pronounced tarot. And if someone says they don't believe in something, but they don't know what it is, that's kind of weird, isn't it? I mean, you would think that you would check it out before you would say you don't believe in it. So how does someone who's checked something out mispronounce it totally like that? Maybe I'm making a big deal out of it. I don't know. But if you are not experienced in tarot and someone wrote the word down for you, would you pronounce it tarot or tarot? Just wondering. So there's another thing that we know that Mr. Barrett was interested in. Now, because of the various tarot references within his music. Now, we've also noted that there are some in Beatles music, like The Fool on the Hill, which appears to be referencing the Fool, the card, the Fool. So, what's going on there? Okay, let's continue on. Don't believe in Hitler. Well, who does, you know? I just want to point out that, of course, Pink Floyd tackled the idea of Hitler in their film The Wall, didn't they? Yeah, this really dark Hitler-type guy. He is kind of like the negative side of Pink in the film The Wall. He says he doesn't believe in Jesus. I guess, I don't know. Some people think that he didn't really exist and that he's just a story. I don't know. I don't know that it matters. For me, it just is a question of whether or not there's some kind of a message that's important or not. The next line is he doesn't believe in Kennedy. Why wouldn't he believe in Kennedy? Well, Kennedy was a reformer in certain ways. He was tied with civil rights. So perhaps he's saying doesn't believe in the success of civil rights. I don't know. The next line says he doesn't believe in Buddha. What a strange thing. Has Mr. Lennon studied Buddhism? I don't know. Maybe he did. You know, I haven't seen too many references to Buddha. Some people believe that the Eggman, the song I Am the Eggman, and the Walrus is kind of referencing Buddha in a way. Perhaps it is. I don't know. But here is the reference to Buddha. Next is mantra, Gita, and yoga. Those are all tied together. Now we know those were kind of important to Mr. Barrett. So this, of course, is after John Lennon had come back from India. So now, okay, so we would think at least he would be familiar with those three things, correct? But we also know that Mr. Barrett was interested in Sanmat. So here are those three things. And there are many photos of him doing yoga. Okay, so let's continue on with the things he doesn't believe in. He says he doesn't believe in kings. He doesn't believe in Elvis. Elvis, the king of rock and roll, so perhaps that's why those are right there together. We mentioned the royalty references that run through Mr. Barrett's music. He says he doesn't believe in Zimmerman. Well, Zimmerman is, of course, a reference to Bob Dylan. His real name was Zimmerman. And, of course, Mr. Barrett did Bob Dylan Blues. So how many things in here have I seen already that are things that could tie in with Mr. Barrett? That's about 8 already. Don't believe in the Beatles. Doesn't even believe in the Beatles. Now, perhaps that's something that would be very, very John Lennon to say. Of course, at the time they were breaking up. He says he just believes in me, Yoko and me. Now, of course, there is an interview with McCartney where he mentions the change in lyric for Hide Your Love Away from feeling 2 foot small to feeling 2 foot tall. I just want to point out this, I just believe in me, Yoko and me, could be I just believe in me, you and me, and it could be changed to Yoko and me. But the you and me would be a much more universal, humane idea, wouldn't it? It would fit that all of these things that are great, right? All these things are great. Some of them are terrible. Some of them are terribly great. And some of them are positively great, supposedly. And yet, this seems to be a very down-home, personal statement that there's just Yoko and me, there's just the people that you know that are close to you, that you love. That's all that there is to believe in, really. That's confirmed with the next line. That's reality. Now, the line after this also is incredibly interesting. The dream is over. Okay. Why is that noteworthy to me? It's noteworthy, of course, because that's exactly what Syd Barrett said in Jug Band Blues just before he left. And of course, this is just before John Lennon is going to leave for an extended period of time to be with family, to move away from all the hustle and ridiculous lifestyle of rock and roll and just go be a family guy for a while. And then he'll come back later. But right there is that statement, the dream is over. The Jug Band Blues is what exactly is a dream and what exactly is a joke. So this lyric continues on. What can I say? Dream is over yesterday. Why is Lennon referencing yesterday? That's a McCartney song, isn't it? Supposedly it is. He mentions then that he is the dream weaver, but now he's reborn. He was the walrus, but now he's John. Well, he was always John, wasn't he? Isn't that a little bit strange to you? That he would say, he was the dream weaver and walrus, but now he's John? Well, it makes sense if he's just going to go and live a simple life. You just have to carry on. The dream is over. Now, what exactly is the dream? The dream in this case appears to be referencing something that's beyond him. He's discussing, being this possible greater man, I suppose, being the walrus. So what exactly could he mean by the dream is over? What is meant by the dream? Why is Syd Barrett also referencing the dream? Perhaps these people are referencing the dream of change in society and it not happening. And we have to remember this is after the Kennedys were assassinated. So perhaps the idea of freedom is one that is dead to them in their mind. Perhaps the idea of equality, civil rights are dead to them in their mind. Perhaps they're talking about their personal dream of living this extravagant lifestyle and traveling around and doing music. Perhaps that's all done. Perhaps the dream of the Beatles. Perhaps all of these things are over. But let's note all the similarities in this song to aspects of interest for Mr. Barrett, and also the resolution to move on from who he appears to be to just be simple John. And of course, Syd Barrett would no longer be Syd. He would go on to just be Roger, which is what his name was, Roger Barrett. And John Lennon appears to be saying the same thing. Now, let's look at one more song here that I want to call out, and that's, I'll do two more. First one is Instant Karma. Let's look at Instant Karma. Now, Instant Karma was released in 1970, same time as God. So let's look at it and we'll ask a few questions. Okay, first off, why is he referencing karma? The idea of karma is a spiritual/religious idea, and he just got done saying that he doesn't believe in all these things. Some people would say that karma is superstitious. Some people would say it's influenced by some supreme being. But he just got done saying he doesn't believe in these things. So what does he mean by instant karma? Okay. Let's look at the lyrics. Pull them up on your phone if you don't mind. He says, instant karma is going to get you, knock you in the head. Get yourself together. Pretty soon you're going to be dead. So we have a short period of time. In our breakdown of Did Syd Barrett and Pink Floyd the greatest love song of all time, we mention Gather ye rosebuds while ye may, old time is still a-flying. That poem, which is here. There it is, right there, isn't it? Gonna knock you in the head. Get yourself together, pretty soon you're gonna be dead. So do the things you need to do, because pretty soon you will be gone. That is exactly the same message as that poem, isn't it? Let's continue on. What in the world are you thinking of laughing in the face of love? What are you trying to do? It's up to you. Yeah, you. So very simple rhymes, not a whole lot of alliteration, but there is a recognition of the importance of love. And perhaps this explains why Mr. Lennon was willing to step away from things, because he recognized the experience and totality of love. I'll just throw that out there. So perhaps that's what he's actually talking about. Instant karma. Instant karma, perhaps for him in this, is referencing the idea of whether or not you're going to live a life of love or not. And that all ties in with karma. So let's continue on. It's going to get you looking in the face. Better get yourself together and join the human race. Of course, many people would say that the civilizing effect of love is what humanizes us and allows us to feel sympathy for one another. It's what allows us to become humane and have empathy for one another. So, how in the world are you going to see? Laughing at folks like me. Who do you think you are, a superstar? Well, you are. Okay, so what does all that mean? Well, this is, again, the idea of laughing at a fool or a love fool is exactly the same lyric that's in Hide Your Love Away. This idea that someone is in love and other people are mocking them for it. It's in that song, and it's here again, isn't it? But of course, this person is saying that love is kind of what it's about. So they're actually the fools, and they will be hit with karma, or negative karma. And this person will experience positive karma. They then go to the chorus, that everyone shines on like the moon and the stars and the sun. We all shine on, everyone. Let's look at the next verse. Instant karma is going to get you, knock you off your feet. Better recognize your brother is everyone you meet. What a wonderful idea. And for me, personally, one of the few positive things about the present story that's happening between Russia and Ukraine is that so many Russians are expressing their dissatisfaction with what their own government is doing. They recognize the Ukrainian people as their brothers and sisters, and they're refusing to go to war. They're refusing to support the government, and they're refusing to be consumed with hate, which is the message that's being delivered to them. That's the statement that's right here. Living a life of love allows you to recognize that your brother is everyone that you will meet. And of course, this idea of being everyone you meet is in Dark Side of the Moon, isn't it? Perhaps not Dark Side of the Moon. Oh, Metal. The song echoes, I am you and what I see is me. Why in the world are we here? Not to live in pain and fear. Why on earth are you there? You're everywhere. Better get your share. Or come and get your share. Get your share of what? Love, obviously. So, why are we here? To live in pain and fear of one another? Or to share love with one another? And experience humanity? And make the most of our very short time on this planet? What a positive message this song is, isn't it? So, it just repeats from that point on. But instant karma, a message obviously for the world, very similar to the message of all you need is love. Instant karma. Okay, let's look at the last song that I'd like to review with you, and it's called Watching the Wheels. And this won't take very long. This is the last song I kind of want to run through. Now, this song was released later in 1980. Now, as we said, Mr. Lennon took kind of a break, and I really, really love this song. Now, we mentioned in Did Sid Dark Side of Oz the idea of wheels corresponding to time. So, watching the wheels obviously could be watching time because the clock looks like a wheel. So let's take a look. And of course, wheels also could be represented by planets because planets move and spin. So, watching the planets go by, watching time go by. Let's look at the lyrics. Call them up on your phone if you will. People say I'm crazy doing what I'm doing. Well, who do people say is crazy? Obviously, people thought Lennon was a little bit nutty, of course, but they also thought the same thing about Sid, and they still do. They give me all kinds of warning to save me from ruin. Okay. Well, give me all kinds of warnings to save me from ruin. Doing and ruin is the rhyme. Strange and game are the rhyme. So a very simple end-of-line rhyme structure. Not a whole much alliteration, but it is interestingly put together. So they give me all kinds of warnings to save me from ruin. And then the next line is, he says he's okay. They look at him kind of strange. Surely you're not happy you no longer play the game. So strange and game. This, of course, is again very similar to what Mr. Barrett had done. He just kind of excused himself from the game. Let's look at the next verse. People say I'm lazy and dreaming my life away. I suppose so. I won't say anything about that line, other than the fact that if you are out just kind of enjoying your life and spending time with people that you really care about, to an outside viewer, they might think that you are just kind of being lazy. But what really are we here for other than to enjoy time with the people that matter to us? So let's continue on. They give me all kinds of advice to enlighten me. Well, I tell them I'm doing fine watching shadows on the wall. So they're watching shadows wall. There's some W alliteration. But I want to point out really quickly, that idea of there being shadows on the wall is in the song Cadillac by Mark Bolan. It's also in the Pink Floyd song Set the Controls for the Heart of the Sun. Now, not only was that song being put together kind of around the time that the band was transitioning away from Sid, but if you look at the lyric, you can see that it also is comparing the idea of shadows with love for some reason. Strange, isn't it, that that would be consistent throughout those three? Don't you miss the big time? You're no longer on the ball? Okay. Let's take a look at the chorus. I'm sitting here watching the wheels go round and round. Now, we mentioned the wheels could represent many things. It could represent time. It could represent planets. It could represent the plans of one another. It could represent just people going through life in cars or on bikes. Really love to watch them all. No longer riding on the merry-go-round. Just had to let it go. So let's look at the last verse. People asking questions, lost in confusion. Look at the hard K sounds there. Asking questions, confusion. Tell them there's no problem, only solutions. So they shake their heads and look at me as if I've lost my mind. Tell them there's no hurry. I'm just sitting here doing time. A really, really wonderful song. As I said, it's one of my favorite. The only thing in there, I suppose, that's kind of suspicious is the shadows reference, and of course, the idea of kind of retiring away to spend time with family. This is something that's, as we mentioned in Peeling Sid, he may have done. There do seem to be some references to family, or at least love, to get away from whatever construct of self that had been made by becoming famous, that he no longer was attracted to and wanted to get away from. And of course, this is something similar that happened with Peter Gabriel, and we'll get into that. Hopefully in the next episode I'll do a real quick did Sid and Pink Floyd Peter Gabriel. So that's pretty much it. That's the breakdown for those songs, and I would just like to point out, the possible influences of Mr. Barrett on those. How important are those? I don't know. The most suspicious one to me is the song God, and all of the references to various aspects of life that appear to be consistent also with Mr. Barrett's life. And whether that's just coincidence or not is up to you. So let's discuss a few final topics here, a few things of note, before I'm going to move on. Now, I'll just do a quick kind of a summary with the Beatles. So we run through the Beatles music, and something I would like to kind of point out is we had a period of time that appeared to not have a whole lot of correlations with the psychedelic movement and with Syd Barrett's music that changed in 1967. And I'll point you again to Mr. John Olivar's website, where he notes the consistent studio time between the Beatles and Pink Floyd. Now, from 67 to 68 or so, at least through then, perhaps all the way to 69 and 70, they do share some studio time, and there are some odd word combinations that are consistent between the bands. What the reason for that is really up to you. I've tried to run through those as best as I can, and ultimately, when you look at a song like Glass Onion that appears to be pointing back at songs, and you consider the stories behind the songs, in my opinion, some of them do seem to make more sense when looked through the eyes of Mr. Barrett's life than when looked through other folks. At any rate, when I look at certain songs by the Beatles, it does pique my interest quite a bit. That so many of them, and I've tried to run through which ones, appear to have aspects to them that are very consistent with Mr. Barrett for some reason. What that reason is, you'll have to decide on your own. Something that we did discuss to a small degree was the theory of Paul is dead and how that may be a construct, a narrative construct, perhaps to just be used as a form of artistic development, but also could have been used as a means towards promoting and making money and developing controversy. Finally, I will say about that two things. One, as we discuss in our Peeling Sid series, the idea of the unreliable narrator, the unreliable captain, may be presented in the video that Pink Floyd shot for Arnold Layne. We discussed that within our Peeling Sid series. And finally, if that is a narrator construct, if there is a story that's being put together, this unreliable leader story, and if some other form of story was developed to help, kind of develop interest in the Beatles' music, is that something that perhaps maybe not everybody else was on board with? In other words, is everyone not on board with the idea of saying Paul is dead / Paul is reborn as Paul, why the fixation on Paul? I don't really know. But perhaps that may have been a source of some disagreement within the band, and perhaps that would explain why other people just wanted to go out and make really simple, basic music. Perhaps things got overly complicated. I didn't go into that too much, but that is something that I do kind of wonder about. Now, one of the songs Mr. John Oliver mentions is Nobody Knows But My Monkey and Me, I believe. Wouldn't it be interesting if there was like a picture of Sid with a monkey or something? And of course there is. So, and who's playing guitar on that song? There's just a lot of questions I have. And it really, really does make me wonder, why is Pink Floyd getting a special treatment? Why are they getting co-studio time with the Beatles? And why are there these similarities in lyrics? I don't know. I mean, for me, as I mentioned, I think Mr. Barrett was an outstanding talent. You'd have to be foolish not to use his talents and help develop music. And one thing I'll say about the Beatles is they were not fools. So let's continue on then. That's pretty much it for my Did Sid Barrett and Pink Floyd, the Beatles. There's two things that I would like to finish with. And as I mentioned, I've been messing around with music again. So one of the things I've been doing is developing a bunch of songs for James Joyce's chamber music. And I think I read somewhere that this was something that may have been of interest to Mr. Barrett. Perhaps Mr. Chapman mentioned it. Perhaps perhaps it was Mr. Palacios. I really don't know. But it's kind of something that I felt I would do to develop my music, but also to kind of give a tribute to Mr. Barrett and his intents, if those were his intents. So one of the things, I just did a video, and I'll link it, and one of them that I was messing with is looking at one of Van Gogh's paintings, which is titled Pieta, which is after Delacroix, or it's painted after the style of Delacroix, and it is a mirror image of it. Now, when I didn't know that until I put them together, and then I was looking at it, and I realized this looks very similar to something. And that similar something is the inside cover of Led Zeppelin's 4. Now, I already did Sid Barrett, Led Zeppelin 4. Did Sid Barrett and Pink Floyd, Led Zeppelin 4. Now, there is someone who kind of breaks down some of the, I'm not sure what he calls them, occult or something, I don't know. For me, they're just esoteric ideas, but whatever. And this person looks at that drawing inside the Led Zeppelin 4 album, and I'll kind of give you a portion of it here. And he kind of says, I'll link his video, that there's a visage that you can see on the rocks that are kind of looking at, I don't know if it's supposed to be a snake or something or whatever, a serpent, I suppose. So I'll just say a few things about this. The first is, this drawing that's inside of here was supposedly made by someone named Barrington Colby, and it references mom. Isn't that strange? Why is there a mom there? Of course, Pink Floyd and Syd Barrett did quite a few songs about mother and mom. Matilda Mother, and then Mother, the song from The Wall. Here's something with someone titled Mom. Why? I have no idea. Who is this person, by the way? Go try to look him up. Give it a try. I tried. Who is Barrington Colby, the artist that made this? He's a mystery. To my knowledge, I mean, I don't know that people know anything about the guy. No photos of him. Where does he live? Where's he from? Etc. Is he just made up? You know, we've mentioned that Mr. Duchamp likes to do that, make up things as a cover. Is this a cover? So another thing that I would kind of like to point out is that the star that appears to be held in a lantern is not. You can see all the bars of the lantern are in fact in front of the star. So this appears to be a combination of the fool and a hermit. Now the reason I'm bringing that up, of course, is because if you look in the background, this rock pile here that they say, or at least one person has said, looks like some kind of a serpent. If you look in the background of Pieta as a reflection, you can see this rock mound kind of formation occurring there as well. Perhaps it's just a coincidence, I don't know. But it's happening there, and who would know something like that? Well, someone that studied art, obviously. But who that's associated with this would, I don't know. The last kind of thought that I would just like to kind of point out is something that I realized, and I don't know if I'll mess with this or not, but I realized that that there is a precursor to the Dark Side of Oz theory. Now, if you're not familiar with it, I'll repost Dark Side of Oz. I'll put it in my description. The basic idea is that somebody was tying Pink Floyd's music on Dark Side of the Moon to match The Wizard of Oz, and I found something new. So when I made that, as I mentioned, I did things in kind of chronological order. So I did the album more, and then I did Dark Side of Oz and Dark Side of the Moon later. So I didn't recognize some of the the preparatory work that may exist within the album more. And I believe now even more fervently that more is a key to understanding Dark Side of the Moon and the Dark Side of Oz, and specifically one song, Green is the Color. Now, in my Did Syd Barrett and Pink Floyd the greatest love song of all time, I kind of discussed this idea of blue and white versus green as being Dorothy versus the witch, and I didn't realize until I was watching that again that very specifically the second verse of Green is the Color says, "Sunshine on her eyes, but moonshine made her blind. Every time." That's the lyric. And if you look at Dark Side of the Moon, that is the end of Dark Side of the Moon. Isn't it? The end lyric to Dark Side of the Moon is, everything is in tune, but the sun is eclipsed by the moon. In other words, you can't see because of the moon. And that's exactly the same expression with different wording. It's within the song Green is the Color. Sunshine on her eyes, but moonshine makes her blind. And it's discussing the same types of ideas. The effects of the world that are removing intents and ideals from us so that we're no longer able to live a life that is living, I guess you could say, in the sunshine, or the correct way of living. Whatever that is, you decide. But however you decide that that's how you should be living, that's how we should be living. That is expressed in both of those. And it appears that the song Green is the Color is preparatory work for a much greater idea that is tied up within Dark Side of the Moon and the Dark Side of Oz theory. And I just realized that just recently. And when I saw that, I thought to myself, whoever did that is amazing. That really is wonderful. I don't know. I mean, maybe people are just hitting on the same ideas and it's really not a big deal. But man, that hit me pretty heavy. So that's pretty much it. That's all my thoughts on this topic. I hope you enjoyed this kind of breakdown of the Beatles music and perhaps some of the intents of the songs. And I will try to make a Did Syd Barrett and Pink Floyd Peter Gabriel video here in just a moment. And we'll see how that goes. I hope you enjoyed this, and I will talk to you later.